right? Georgetown, okay, and UNC are in the national championship, right? Okay. Ball goes on the left wing, catches it in rhythm. Jordan sank it in, right? Okay, they don't talk about the other play, like, I forgot the player on Georgetown, but he threw it to James Worthy and that ended the game. But that was a clutch shot. And you'll go into the documentary and Michael Jordan will say, that's when I went from Mike Jordan to Michael Jordan. Right? That's when he gained national fame. Right, because he hit one of the clutchest shots in a championship game. I mean, that's a lot of pressure to hit that jump shot. Okay, I mean, that was probably that's
6'7",
a 6'6". Yeah, I mean, but he started off small and he didn't. His father wasn't really naturally tall, and his brother's 5'8". So. And it kind of goes, and I kind of know from experience, but having an older brother and kind of having that sibling rivalry, I mean, he goes on to talk about how his brother Larry really pushed him to be the best basketball player, because it was always a competition, and he'll go on in the documentary talking about how he always wanted his father's affection and his father's approval, right? Because he always saw that's what Larry got.
Now let's shift gears a little bit and talk about his father when Jordan had to leave basketball because of the gambling. You recall that?
Yeah.
And the story was that the father was running around in South Carolina with gold and a red Corvette, chain link, gold necklaces, bragging his money, and Michael's my son, and this and that, and he ends up getting killed. Because the gambler put a warning out for Jordan. This is the story, that Jordan was threatened if he didn't pay his debts to the gamblers, then something was going to happen. And basically, that is what happened. When Jordan was working for the White Sox, he was a baseball player. He's no longer in basketball.
Right. Well, and to add context to that, the reason why is because Jerry Reinsdorf owns the Chicago White Sox. Right. So that's how he got into baseball. I mean, he did play baseball earlier, but
it was to keep his contract.
Right, to keep his
professional contract.
Yeah, right, to keep his shoe deal and all that stuff.
They could come back and start playing.
But and that's the problem that we have with all those stories, because Michael Jordan will never tell us what really happened. It's a tragedy, really. I mean, that guy just won 3 championships in a row, like supposed to be the zenith of, it's basketball nirvana, and then your father gets killed like that.
Well, the father would ask for it. That's the story. Now, here's the story that I got. I know the guy that was a warm-up right now. That's the CPA, and he knows all the White Sox players. The story goes like this. A warm-up pitcher for the White Sox who lives in Sarasota knows all the White Sox players and asks the question, what and why did the father get killed? Why did Jordan go into baseball? To keep his professional contract. What happened to his debt that he owed the gamblers? And there was a big debt. The gambler said, you're going to get a warning if you don't pay it. Well, the warning was carried out. The story went like this. Father's running around in South Carolina, a redneck area, a big one, and he's in a bar with rednecks. Somebody puts a pile of money on the bar and said, I hate effing, you know what.
Yeah.
And so then the father still continues his bragging and running around, flirting with the women, white women. And next thing you know, they find him dead, and they target back to this one incident in this one South Carolina bar. They end up arresting the guy, young kid, carried out the killing just to show off what he could say and what he couldn't say. And that was the idea. That was when Jordan paid off his debt at that point. However he got it paid, And then he was able to come back to baseball, back to basketball, away from baseball. He was just a fair baseball player. but he kept his professional contracts that way.
Right. Well, he played minor league. I mean, you know, the real tragedy is just you know, senseless killing. I mean, really, the motivation of race and. But you know, it's all shrouded in mystery. Nobody, and the closest people that are to Michael Jordan are never going to admit any.
No, that's not going to be admitted to. That's not the point.
Right.
The point is that's the word.
Right. That's the story.
That's the story running around. And
Right.
it so happens that he did pay the debt then.
Right.
He was owed money that had to be paid, had to read it money. And when he paid the debt, he was able to come back to basketball right at that time. So he didn't stay in baseball. That's the point.
Well, yeah, I mean that's the story that everybody says, that you know I was kind of time out, you know, take a step back and you know, from the game of basketball. I mean, you know, because he had to let somebody else win. Because I mean, you know, if honestly in my mind, if Michael Jordan didn't retire for a year and a half, I mean, they probably would have won 8 straight.
Oh yeah.
I mean,
And then they took it away from Pippen, who was actually, I felt, in many respects, almost Jordan's equal.
well, I mean, imagine if Scottie Pippen played today.
Oh,
I mean, you know, you're looking, because he was way ahead of his time, you know, in terms of a big guy that could facilitate. You know, a very you know, that Bulls team. I mean, they had so many weapons. I mean,
he had the great outside shooter of.
yeah. I mean, well, you had John Paxson, but you also had Steve Kerr and the second three-peat. Yeah. Actually, Steve Kerr played on the Cavaliers against Michael Jordan.
Did he really?
Yeah. Okay. Let me tell you something that doesn't get, and this is why when we talk about LeBron James versus Michael Jordan and all that stuff, and don't get me wrong, LeBron James is a great player, but if you're looking at a basketball perspective, right, historically speaking, the teams in the 90s and like late 80s, early 90s from in the Eastern Conference, I mean, that is probably one of the hardest conferences to get out of. I mean, look, the Cleveland Cavaliers and get to the NBA Finals.
Right.
You know, to get through everybody. The Cleveland Cavaliers, they have Mark Price. Let me put this on wax right now. Mark Price, one of the most underrated point guards in all of NBA history. Okay, way before his time too. Slick jump shot, could run an offense. I mean, him, Larry Nance Sr. You know, Craig Elo. You know that shot over Craig Elo. I mean, look. That team was that good, and that's why what makes Michael Jordan so great. He kept everybody else from winning a ring. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, sure.
I mean, all his contemporaries.
Right.
You know, same thing with the Knicks. I mean, you know, you look at the battles in the Garden. I mean, when Michael Jordan dropped the double nickel, 55 point. I mean,
But that was before the main team. He was the only. I mean, he scored 55.
Yeah.
And it was sort of like the time when Chet Walker brought the Bulls into a playoff status before Jordan came along, when Parrish was there and all of that group of players. But what they did at that time was really pull. I mean, Jordan was from the Carolinas, but you had Chet Walker and you had Oscar Robertson from the Midwest, Cincinnati, Bradley University. Those were what got the center of the country really loving basketball, those two guys. And Jordan then was the frosting on the cake as far as the talent goes.
well, I mean, if we're
And
gonna
being with the Bulls. To boot.
well, I mean, if we're gonna look at the entirety of the NBA, I mean,
I think today it's boring, frankly.
there's a lot more scoring.
I think it's not the team play we need.
Yeah, but I mean, you know what? They got rid of a lot of the ISO ball. I mean, ISO ball doesn't really work. I mean, the problem that I guess I would have with modern NBA is that everybody's trying to jack up threes. Everybody in their mind. Okay, they want to shoot half-court shots. And here's the thing: Steph Curry, okay, phenomenal player, great shooter, right?
Real good.
For the Golden State Warriors. But he, in a sense, kind of made all these kids think that they were 3-point shooters when, not everybody's a 3-point specialist. You know what I'm saying?
But they are going to come up with the rules. They're going to have to come up with the rules.
Well, they're probably going to have to extend the 3-point line or something like that because,
they have to widen the lane.
I mean, look, let's put
Call
it
the lane.
Right. Well, let's put it in perspective. I can show you statistics when the Golden State Warriors are shooting less than like 30% from 3, they lose, right? You live and die by the 3. That's why LeBron James and those Cavaliers were so special because they found out a way to lock those guys up and to cut off their, take away their spots, in those finals because they were frazzled. They really got beat down. Okay, and that's one thing that you have to give LeBron James credit. Nobody has come back from a 3-1 deficit. And if you want to talk about the Mount Rushmore,
the deficit in playoff.
Right. Nobody's come from back from a
1-3.
Yeah, 1-3, deficit, and win the whole thing. And first of all, it's 50 years since, Cleveland even won a championship. So, that, emotionally, I was pretty excited when I saw that on TV. I think that was one of the best games I've ever seen in my life. It was, there was no scoring for about 2 minutes. Okay, and then Kyrie Irving hits a dagger right in Steph Curry's face, and then go down the other way, and you have the block. And then don't even talk about Kevin Love getting a stop too.
Let's shift gear a little bit here. You come from a family of hockey fans, right? And one of the things that happens in hockey, there's very few black people in the sport, right?
Right.
And when there is a black player, what do they say in hockey?
Go to basketball.
They definitely do that.
Yeah, but let me, and this is if I could make a statement on that whole thing, I think that when you go to a game, I think jeering, or saying things like mockery is stupid, because if you're a real fan of the game, boo, whatever you gotta do, get in the player's head. But the name calling, you know what? If the players want to trash talk amongst themselves, that's amongst themselves. But I'm there to watch the game. I'm there to analyze it.
You're a spectator first.
I'm a spectator first. I enjoy the game of basketball. Sometimes I don't really have a particular, dog in a fight, I just like to see good competition, right? And obviously, I have a preferential team, but, if I just go there.
You can't really be, your basketball team today is what?
A basketball team today that I root for? Look, I always will love the Chicago Bulls, but...
what's wrong with the Chicago Bulls?
Just horrible management. Which they hired a new president of, or VP of operation, whatever. They make all these titles up. I can't.
But the guy that mostly has kept them down is?
Gar Forman and John Paxson.
John Paxson's a great 3-point shooter.
Right. Well, he was...
2-minute warning. 2-minute warning.
He was the essential... he's one of the essential players. He hit the shot in Phoenix to seal that championship.
He killed off the Bulls and got rid of people right at a point they could have done really well recently.
Yeah, well, let's
recent past.
Right. Well, let's talk about that.
We only have about a minute left.
Let's wrap this episode up and then we'll go to another one.
Right. Okay. Well,
say thank you, Augie, for or whatever, or you tell him thank you, and then we'll say, hey, look, part 2's coming up.
Okay.
We're not done yet.
Okay.
Who wants to lead that? You?
I'm going to do it now.
Yeah, you lead it.
Giuseppe, this is great. What you're having to say is excellent. This is professional evaluation and really a good insight for a great sport. I want to thank you for that. We're going to come to part 2. We're going to take a break.
Okay.
All right. Part 2.
Okay.
You can take a break if you want to take a break.
Yeah. Yeah, but
let's do it. Ready?
Oh, part 2?
Yep.
Okay.
Unless you want to take a break.
Just go.
Remember, we got 10 more minutes, and then we have to wrap the episode up.
Okay.
So we go. Paxson, we were talking about Paxson.
Right.
What he's done, how he damaged the team. As great as he was, what he's done to this current team. I think he's done huge harm.
Yeah, well, the reason why I stopped being a Bulls fan in the later year, strictly on how people treated Derrick Rose.
Oh,
I'm not a particular fan of these fair weather fans that say, "Oh well, you know, oh, and watch Jordan was playing," and it's like, okay.
How is Rose doing right now?
He's playing pretty decently. I don't have his stats up right now,
who's he
but
with?
he's with the Detroit Pistons. But you know, he's been one of the. I mean, he's hit some clutch shots, won some games.
He's almost an artist the way he plays.
Oh yeah, I mean, look, this guy, homegrown, right? In our own backyard, went to Simeon High School, right? Memphis State, went to the national championship, right? Okay, I mean, this guy, I mean, getting drafted by the Bulls, it's a fairy tale. It's what everybody wanted in Chicago. I mean, this
From
was
street basketball to
to the pros, to play, from looking outside the United Center to playing inside the United Center,
Right.
to wear a Chicago Bulls uniform. I mean that's everybody's dream. I mean that was my dream as a kid. Like when you know you hear the soundtrack Sirius, you know, it's like, ladies and gentlemen, your Chicago Bulls, and then you know I'll run out. You know, everybody gets hyped up into that. You know, that's something that, I mean, and that's a testament of Michael Jordan and all the rest of the Bulls and what they've done to kind of just have this. I mean, they were cool.
The neat thing is to watch a Bull game is to watch in the stands to see Pippen following his past team.
Right.
He goes to all their games.
Well, you know what's and the tragic thing about that, and I'll touch back on that again. He actually got fired from being an ambassador of the Chicago Bulls. I don't know about that, but probably.
Why did that?
I can't tell you that. I mean, I would have to do a little
He
bit.
probably
more
told the
research.
truth.
Yeah, probably. Well, he said, it's okay. I want to be associated with winning anyway. But, you know, yeah.
Oh, that's funny.
But
Why is that funny? Because they don't win.
No, they don't. They don't. I mean, look, and getting back to why I'm not necessarily in love with the Bulls right now, the fans, they didn't deserve Derrick Rose. I mean, this is a guy that's an introvert. He's not going to tell you everything. He's not going to say anything. And then, you know, they're just picking at little things when he was getting hurt. I mean, this guy was the youngest
Superman
MVP in the
knocked
league.
him down like a fly.
Right.
I think 3 different times.
Listen.
And Superman is who? Who is
Dwight Howard.
Dwight Howard.
Yeah.
Big.
Well, I mean, at that time, they were going for MVP. I mean, Dwight Howard was the man in Orlando, and he was just, in 2009, he was just coming off of NBA Finals appearance. So, I mean, you know, people were saying, oh, well, LeBron James should have won 2010 MVP, blah, 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 blah. But Derrick Rose, I mean, the youngest MVP. I mean, this guy could jump out the gym. I mean, you have this, like, jet engine in this little frame.
Right.
Like, he could just light you up, man. He could do anything. Anything. I mean, really, I mean, he's still a beautiful basketball player. Like, just watching him play. I mean,
Well,
it's art, you know?
Yeah, basketball done by the right people is an art.
Right.
And Dr. J was always my favorite in that.
And those early 2010 Bulls team, you had Joakim Noah, you know, another defensive player of the year. Luol Deng, solid role player. You know, Jimmy Butler was developing. He was a LeBron
He's
style.
in Miami now.
Yeah, he's in Miami now. Well, you see how that turned out. He's just, you know, one of these stars. I think he's underappreciated, but that team had a lot of talent. And, you know, my thing with, you know, some fans, they were like, yeah, I don't like Derrick Rose. And they were like, why? Yeah, well, he's a thug. And, you know, that's just another way of saying something else.
Yeah, it's racial.
Yeah, it's racial, the racial connotation. And I don't put up with that because that guy gave you heart and soul. And Tom Thibodeau, great coach. But, I mean, he ran that guy into the ground.
Yes,
into the ground. I mean, you
wore him out.
Wore him out. And think about how much the rules have changed since 2012 when he got hurt. And, you know, just this load management and all this stuff. I mean, you know, he even said it, Derrick Rose, he'd probably still be a Bull. and I firmly believe that. You know, and I just
So
think
Thibodeau is the culprit there.
right. Well, you're not you overplay. You play him like, you know, 42 minutes a game. You know, like, you know, I mean, it's crazy. It really was crazy. I mean, because. And I can attest to that just playing pickup ball when you're running up and down.
You gotta be in great shape.
Yeah, you gotta be in great shape, and then especially at that level where he's jumping so high and violently throwing it down, that's killer on me.
Yes, he is.
That's killer. I mean, you know, if one thing, if I was on that coaching staff, I would have tried to limit his movement and try to work more on his jump shot because, you know, when you get older as a player, you've seen older players because Michael Jordan was the same way, high flying, you know, doing crazy shots, and then in his older years he got stronger, he got more solid, and he started working on his, you know, jump. You know, he had a decent jump shot always, but I mean, he really perfected that fadeaway shot, and I mean, he could do anything really, I mean, realistically. But, you know, it's always evolution of your game because, you know, if you break something, if you break your leg in a place, that's going to affect the way you play, right? No matter what you do, right? So, you know, I have a really great admiration for these guys that come back from injury and reinvent themselves as players.
Right.
And that's what Derrick Rose, he's not high flying anymore, but man, he's quick. He's quick with the dribble, and I mean, he can get a shot off.
Let's make a quick shift of gears. I know that the great love of mine as well is basketball. We've got a peculiar thing happening in Tampa Bay, and the Bucks who got rid of did Winston go, or did he just back up now?
No, he's gone.
He's gone. Where'd he go?
Not quite sure yet.
Not sure.
I don't know.
So now we got Tom Brady coming in. It's going to be the short pass if we have a season. Like in basketball, are you going to have a season? That's the question. So what's the story that he walked into the wrong house lately? What's that all about?
Well, you know, the offensive coordinator, I guess, you know, lives in a nice little neighborhood, and he got the house mixed up, walked in the wrong house, ran into the owner of the house, and had an awkward moment, and then left.
How awkward was
It was just like, oh, this is not where I'm supposed to be.
it? Nothing more than that.
Nothing more
Didn't
than
somebody in the bathroom or anything like that?
No.
In the shower? None of that.
No, nothing too crazy.
So how much help is he going to be to the Tampa Bay Bucks?
Well, sells jerseys, sells tickets. I mean, from a financial standpoint, that's a big deal. I mean, like when these big stars go place to place, I mean, I know winning's important, but you got to look at it too. I mean, this money that the team will get from jersey sales, from, you know, publicity, people talking about Buccaneers football. I mean, this is important. Okay, this is why when you sign a guy like that, it gets other people interested in your product, right? And what you're trying to sell from a business perspective. Let's separate football out of the equation. From a business perspective, if I get a hot brand item like Tom Brady, he's a brand, right? And I implant them in Southwest Florida. I mean, that's going to do so much for your market, you know.
Now, are they going to do NFL and the NBA as well, what they did in Indonesia? We talked about this. In soccer in Indonesia, there's a story that the Indonesians decided to have fans in the audience, cardboard fans. And they had people in the aisles moving the cardboard fans, like they were clapping.
Yeah.
And then they had sound effects from the people watching on big screens below the stadium about what they were witnessing about the game on the field. So they're trying to keep the game going in Indonesia for soccer. Do you think the Americans have that much imagination?
No, not at all. I think you get rid of college and the NFL seasons, and I think people will lose their mind. I think people will literally. In terms of all this happening, you know, it makes me see how important sports are, right? Because you can be from anywhere you can think whatever you think, but we can all agree on sports.
Loving the sport.
Our love for the sport. That's how we find common ground, and you see that throughout history. That's why we had the Olympics, because we can all break bread and through friendly competition.
Now, in terms of the Olympics, the famous race of Jesse Owens that was made to run it 2 or 3 times, and Hitler didn't want to lose. And this guy leads to Owens.
Right. Well, that was because, and this is the greatest thing about being American is we're not an ethnocentric society. You know, we're American by idea, right? And you know, and that's the greatest thing because you know when you have a fascist, totalitarian, you know, ethnocentric, like, oh, the superior race, you know, and then you have a black man from the United States beat your team. You know, it kind of pokes a hole in your bubble, and it's beautiful to watch. It's beautiful to watch because I like when racists are proven wrong and shown to be idiots. So, you know, that's a great human story in the.
We have a couple more minutes, Giuseppe. This is really great. I think what you're doing, these overviews, your love for basketball, particularly spectacular stories. Back to basketball a little bit. The shot you mentioned. How does the great shooter was Paxton and
Steve Kerr and those.
Steve Kerr.
Yeah. Well, and then you got to give Tony Kukoc credit, you know. And,
we're going to wind it up. I guess I thought we had a little bit more time, but we don't. But this will be a decent segment, and really, I've always admired your depth of knowledge on sports, and of course your love for basketball. And for the longest time, I tried to get you to go become a basketball referee.
Yeah.
And run the court yourself. But maybe you will one day.
yeah. I got to sell a couple more hot dogs first.
And you have, by the way, he has the best hot dogs anywhere, and they really are great hot dogs. They're real meat, they're real hot dogs, they pop in your mouth.
Right.
Giuseppe, it's great.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Now you're gonna go on YouTube.com and The Edge with Augie, and then of course we're gonna have The Edge with Giuseppe if we keep doing this.
Yeah. No,
How do you feel about that?
I feel great.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.